I'm Terry Shepard, along with Jennifer Dornbush, with another in our series of interviews from the Outliers Writing University studio at Bouchercon 2025. Ever wonder what #1 bestsellers teach behind the scenes? At Outliers Writing University, you learn live, online from names like Jeffrey Deaver, James Rollins, Heather Graham, Meg Gardner, Hank Philippi Ryan, and more. Whether you're starting your first chapter or leveling up a finished draft, you'll get craft coaching, real-time feedback, and a community that keeps you writing. Become the writer readers can't put down. Enroll now. Enroll now at outlierswritinguniversity.com. And now, from Bouchercon 2025, here's our conversation with New York Times bestselling author Brad Thor.
One of the undisputed masters of the modern thriller. The #1 New York Times bestselling author has written 25 novels that blend pulse-pounding suspense with unnerving real-world relevance, earning him accolades from NPR, the Washington Times, and countless fans around the globe. Beyond the page, he's contributed to major news outlets as a terrorism and national security commentator, served with the Department of Homeland Security's analytic Red Cell unit, even shadowed a black ops team in Afghanistan to bring authenticity to his work. His latest novel, Edge of Honor, finds America's top spy, Scott Harvath, navigating shifting political alliances in a conspiracy that could topple the nation itself. It's a story of power, betrayal, and the razor's edge between survival and catastrophe. And on the horizon comes Cold Zero, a collab with fellow thriller writer Ward Larson. In it, the disappearance of the high-tech airliner over the Arctic ignites a desperate race between Washington, Moscow, and Beijing for a secret that could alter the balance of world power. Sounds like Ice Station Zebra to me.
You know what? That was a little bit of my inspiration on that dream board. Who was it? It was Rock Hudson.
Yeah, right.
Well, unbelievable movie. And I actually watched it again because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid.
It has aged very well.
It has. It's a great movie. Great movie. So if people draw that parallel, I'm going to be so honored. Yeah.
And the movie, it's better than Alistair MacLean's book.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've got so many. I was a big MacLean fan growing up as a kid. That was a big influence on me. So, my parents in the summer, we had a house in Wisconsin. We had a big basket of books on the front porch, and my parents would sit out there, read. I really loved, it wasn't Malcolm Gladwell. What was the book that had the apple with the orange inside on the cover? And it was all about this Gladwell's Tipping Point. That's Freakonomics.
Oh, Freakonomics. Yeah, right.
And one of the most fascinating things inside Freakonomics was how do you make your children great readers? We're always told it's if you read to your children. When in point of fact, it is do your kids see you reading and are there books around your house? They mimic your behavior as a parent. So my parents had all these great thrillers when I was growing up. So there's Freddie Forsyth, John le Carré, Alistair's books.
Ken Follett.
Pillars of the Earth is one of my favorite. It is my absolute all-time favorite book. But I read Guns of Navarone, Where Eagles Dare, and then I had to see the movies. Right. Young Clint Eastwood, the Iger Sanction, which was Trevanian. We had Trevanian books. So So if I end up having anyone who's familiar with Ice Station Zebra say, "Wow, this has got those vibes with Cold Zero," I'll be the happiest guy in the world. It'd be such a compliment to somebody who grew up reading those books or was inspired to become a writer because of those books.
What's it like to write with my buddy Ward Larson?
Well, you do know Ward has a gambling, drug, and alcohol. He's got the guy. I can't say enough good things about Ward, starting with the fact that he's a fellow Scandinavian. So our joke was, how are we going to work together? And is there going to be a Viking longboat big enough to hold both of us when we're working? We're going to need a little space at times. We're going to get a little close at times. He was fantastic. My editor had been really big on you can't just pick a name out of a hat and you can't just talk to somebody via phone and email. She said, I want you to figure out who the people are you want to work with and then spend some time with them. And so that was a neat opportunity. And the minute I saw Ward, I was like, this is it. This is it. We sat down, we talked, we saw things the right way. And he's just a fabulous human being and an incredible writer. And it was pretty cool for me that Ward said, yeah, I like this idea. Let's do it. And so
we did it, and then he gets picked up by the Clancy estate to write a Clancy novel. I was like, yep. They saw me work with Ward, and they're like, no, we want him too for Clancy. I mean, he earned his way into Clancy, and Tom Colgan, who shepherds that whole thing, is just, I cannot tell you. I love two editors, like, unbelievably in the world. One is my own, Emily Bessler, and then the other one is Tom Colgan. I think Tom Colgan is, next to Emily Bessler, I got to be careful because I got my publicist right here. He's going to report back to the mothership. Colgan's fantastic. Colgan's, like Emily, Colgan's got a scary eye for talent. He knows it when he sees it. And so the fact that he picked up Ward to do the next Clancy, I think it's going to be so good. Ward's just incredible.
At the top of this interview, you used the word dream board. Do you use a dream board? What was your process?
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a little shorthand for me. I do, my wife jokes that it looks like a beautiful mind, like with all the pieces of yarn and all this kind of stuff. I'll print out photographs. I have a black and white printer. It's not even a color printer. It's relatively low tech. And I'll paste it. I don't want a view. I look at a blank wall. So my monitor, behind it is a blank wall. Everything unfolds in my mind like a movie. But I will, if I've got an idea I always cast the movie as I'm writing the book. So if I want somebody for this role or that role, I'll print out a picture of them and I'll stick it to the wall behind my computer. So when I look up, I see the actors, actresses, they are invoking in me a certain feeling when I see them, and that helps me channel their character by just having a physical representation of the character taped to the wall.
That works.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah. So who's cast?
I don't know. I will tell you this. I know that Hollywood does not like it if you talk about who you would cast, because they want to introduce, they want to make the decision and have you march you into the room and say, you were my first choice. I'm so glad you got the role.
You can say that anyway, though.
No, we'll see what happens. I mean, the book Cold Zero is not out till February, but it was just, I'm lucky. It's funny. It reminds me of I did work with a PI firm in Chicago, private investigative firm in Chicago. And the first case I got after going through my training and all that kind of stuff, the first case that the agency had was a murder. And it was unbelievable. And the cops messed up the crime scene because it was local, small cops in the suburb of Chicago that the big regional task force was sending in their homicide detectives because this department didn't have their own homicide detectives. It's too small. And they didn't get a lot of homicides in this town, northwest Chicago. And the cops blew it and left behind a key piece of evidence where the killer wiped his knife off, cleaned the knife that he used for the murders on a pair of trousers. And the cops missed him. And I found it. And it was really cool. And we had been in there and we did the black lights. They'd already done the luminol and all that kind of stuff. So they get the blood spray pattern on the wall and all that kind of stuff. And it was really fun that I found this key piece of evidence because it just showed that the cops screwed up the crime scene. These guys just wanted to close the case and be the big shots in their community before the proper homicide detectives got there. And so that was very helpful because they wanted to frame a family member for the killing. It was an insane thing. The guy didn't speak English as a first language. And they interrogated him under duress. They used another cop who spoke his language to interrogate him, to try to make him feel good. He didn't have a lawyer present, all this stuff. But what was funny, so getting back to the success I had with Ward, what I feel is a very successful partnership, the lead private investigator I was working for said to me, he goes, you better not think this is the way this job normally goes. We're normally doing like really messy divorces.
They're cleaning up their act.
People that are cheating on their insurance policies, that are claiming, that they were injured on the job and they're out shooting hoops. He goes, it's normally just absolutely boring. And your first one out of the gate is a murder. It's like unbelievable. But I feel that same way with Ward is that I just lucked out. It was right time, right place, and absolutely the right person. I can't say enough good things about him.
But Brad, where did you find the pants?
I found the pants in the kitchen.
Where?
I think.
Where were the pants in the kitchen?
In the garbage
I
can?
think the police officers found them, but the fact that they didn't log them into their evidence file and bag them and take them with them, that they didn't preserve the chain of custody on this key piece of evidence. So that's normally what happens when you've got an evidence tech. They're normally sitting like at the dining room table or the kitchen table because you got to lay things out and you got to mark it in. And I think that's what happened. I think somebody brought them into the kitchen and they just never made. So it just showed how sloppy the cops were. I love cops. I don't like sloppy cops. I don't like sloppy anybody. I don't like a sloppy airline pilot, a sloppy surgeon, sloppy cop. Somebody was murdered at his house. They were trying to send a family member up the river for the crime. It was crazy.
Sounds like the cops didn't like you very much after you found something they missed.
Well, and then they were trying to get all squiggly about it. And I had a friend who was an anchor on the local news station there. And I'm like, you want a story? No, it wasn't Chuck. I love Chuck Gowdy.
I went to college with Chuck. We're old, buddy.
Chuck Gowdy, New Year's Eve, always was my favorite watch, even when I lived in Chicago. Chuck was the best. Super handsome. And then he'd be, all the ABC guys would be, have a glass of champagne.
Just having such a good time. It was better than watching the ball drop in New York. The Chicagoans knew how to party. Still do.
They still do.
Yeah.
Chuck is this big investigative reporter. He was for many years with WLS and now with NBC, right?
I live in Nashville now, so I don't know where.
Yeah, he just changed.
I don't hear from him ever.
Changed people.
Doesn't stay in touch. Champagne on New Year's Eve.
We were really good friends, and if I'm in Chicago and he happens to be the place I am, it's like good old times, and we slash our college rings. But otherwise,
Chuck's got things to do.
he's got he's saving the world.
He's had a long, successful career. I mean, he's a great journalist, a great voice, super handsome. I always liked him, but it was not Chuck who I took the story about the pants to.
So how do you get these elite organizations to let you tag along?
It's interesting. When I graduated college and I decided I was going to write my first novel, I got a few chapters into it and I quit. I was afraid of failure. What if the manuscript is terrible? What if no publisher wants it? What if I take all this time? I think that we all have that voice in the back of our heads that says it's better to avoid the embarrassment by not even trying. So don't even risk it. I had long ago co-opted an old slogan that I used to see in PSAs on Saturday morning that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I shortened it to a mind is a terrible thing, period. And that's where that voice is. But I think that which we're most afraid of, we're most destined to do in life. So
that's an interest. Say that again. That's really
that which we're most destined to do in life, we're often the most afraid of.
That is the truth.
That what you want lies behind fear. And if you can get through the fear, you can get to what you want. So I shipped my laptop back home. I pursued a different career. I had a public television travel show that was a lot of fun, but I always wanted to write books. And my wife said, on our honeymoon, what would you regret never having done? And I said, writing a book and getting it published. So what ended up happening is like any other business. So I didn't know about writing thrillers or anything like this. And I did think it was solitary and you were alone all the time. I told myself that's why I didn't like writing, because it was so solitary. And the truth is, I couldn't write the books I write without the participation and kind assistance of people who have been out there doing the things, you heard that I write about. You always hear, been there, done that, got the T-shirt to prove it. And I say, been there, done that, got the spent shell casings to prove it is my line. And so you build a professional network the same way a realtor does, the same way attorneys do, and so on and so forth. And so one thing led to another, one relationship led to another. And if you're kind and respectful, people will introduce you to other people. And I like to say I buy a lot of pitchers of beer and a lot of steak dinners. I take people out to dinner. I sit and listen to their stories. And eventually you have people that come your direction too. People who say, hey, I've read your books. I was in Iraq or I was in Afghanistan, and we had a stack of books in our on our fob, and I picked up your first one and I kept reading, and you made the time over there so much more not enjoyable, but you helped me pass it. You helped me take my mind off of what I was doing. So it's nice.
You mentioned your wife and the honeymoon and the question she asked you. And I have found that every great artist I've ever known or studied has always had that person behind them. But
Yes.
they've never, can you talk, how do you feel about that?
No, I mean, I could obviously only speak from personal experience. I saw a book mentioned somewhere. It's an old book from like the 60s, and my in-laws were coming to visit, and I bought it, and it's called Married to Genius. I left it like on the desk in my office. Married to Genius. I just to be silly, but for my wife's encouragement, I don't know. I think I probably would have stayed with TV and I would have kept doing that. But that question, and what an interesting question to ask your spouse who you just married. I would think that'd be a question that'd kind of be before you got to that point, right? you want to know what's this person want to do with their life. But it was a great question. And on our honeymoon, I ended up, we ended up in an overnight train where we had our only shared train compartment. And it was this lovely brother and sister from Atlanta, Georgia. And they were big fans of my TV show, my travel show. The two of them traveled together all the time. And we ended up talking about our shared love of books. And the sister said, well, what are you doing? You going to go back home after your honeymoon and make more of your TV show? And I said, well, I've talked to my wife. I'm going to write a novel. She's like, that's awesome. We get into the train station. We had overnighted from Munich and Oktoberfest to Amsterdam. And we go to trade business cards. And lo and behold, she's a sales rep for Simon & Schuster. She said, if you write that book, I want to read it. And if I could help you at Simon & Schuster, I want to do it. And I've been at this 26 books now, Simon & Schuster.
This is how life works.
Yes, I do believe that.
Yes.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to write.
So you always wanted to write?
Always wanted to write.
Do you remember the first thing you ever wrote?
I probably wrote like little short stories and things like that and plays and blah, 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 blah. My parents were really into not a lot of TV time and stuff and read books. And like I said, they'd finish their thrillers and I would grab them. I was probably reading all those books way too young, to be honest. I burned through the Hardy Boys so fast. And then once I got on that, I was mainlining those thrillers. I was like, it's like a junkie. 8 years old and I'm picking up, Eye of the Needle and stuff like that. I'm like, what's a bathhouse? Why is this man just staying are they friends? Is that why he's staying at this other man's house?
The Virgins and the Bees talk about 5 years together.
Yeah. There's like, what? My dad's like, that sounds like the plot for Eye of the Needle.
We're talking with
Day of the Jackal. Sorry, it was Day of the Jackal. That's the one.
the legendary Brad Thor is our guest. He has 2 books. One is out, one is coming. The Edge of Honor is the current hit. Cold Zero, in concert with the great Ward Larson, is coming soon. What do you like best about writing?
Oh, it's the wit of the staircase. So that's that old French term that you get that snappy rejoinder as you're walking downstairs from the cocktail party. Oh, I should have said this. But as a writer, you can go back and stick it in. So I get the power to turn back the hands of time, at least in my story. I can rewind and give a character a better response to something or a better reaction. So that's what I love, is creating a universe where I really am the all-powerful Oz, and I can move things around and do that. I really, that for me is what I love the most about the process. And then the other thing, my dear friend David Morrell, and I've told him that I have a mental block. He has a great book that was originally titled Lessons Learned from a Lifetime of Writing. And some publisher along the way told him to change the title. I have been pimping that book. I've been an ambassador for that book for over 20 years. And I am incapable of knowing what the new title, of locking into my brain what the new title is.
It's a great title.
It was a great title. It is a fabulous book. And one of the things that David talks about in there is that you should not, and how I feel about baby names. I learned very quickly when you're a couple and you're pregnant, and you do not tell anybody what the baby's name is going to be, because everybody's got a bad story about somebody with that name. Oh, I had an ex-boyfriend. Yeah, he stole money from me and blah, 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 blah. You don't tell anybody the baby's name, because once the baby's born, nobody's going to tell you about the ex-boyfriend that had that name. And David Morrell had said, you need to be very careful about sharing with people your book idea for the book you're working on. It needs to power you. It needs to be rocket fuel that powers you through a year of writing. And every time you tell somebody that story, it takes a little bit of the fuel out of the rocket. So to get back to your question, I love finding an idea that powers my rocket for that year. I love finding something that I don't know about and that I'm interested in. And I have to get myself a mini PhD in that subject, because once I understand it, I can explain it to readers. So I learn something new every year. And that's what I love about being an author.
Exhilarating.
Yes.
Brad Thor, the great and powerful Oz.
We highly recommend Edge of Honor, and we can't wait for Cold Zero. Brad Thor, what a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Is there a question? You've done thousands of these, and we know some of the same people. Is there a question that you haven't been asked that you wish you had been asked?
Gosh, it's good. That is a lovely thing to ask. Gosh, I don't know. What's the most interesting thing you've had someone in my chair What's the most interesting answer you've received back?
We've had some this week.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we were interviewing a woman who is a psychiatrist who works with serial killers. We found out that she and I were born in the same town in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that she...
Zingerman's Deli?
Zingerman's Deli. Well, it wasn't there when I was. That's how old I am. It wasn't there yet. There were no Zingerman's, but I don't know if you remember the name John Norman Collins, the serial killer, great Ann Arbor serial killers. Well, she was the one, the psychiatrist who interviewed him, and the only one he would talk to, and we discovered that was when I was 14, that was the first news story I covered as a cub reporter for a local radio station. Really? And then we found out she was living in Saline, and I said, have you ever been on Brassow Road? There's a great radio station there. And she says, I was a girlfriend of one of the disc jockeys. It turns out it's Jim Kerr, who for the last 50 years has been the #1 morning guy on the radio in New York City, and a guy that I knew when he was 14 going by Jim Curtis. And she says, yeah, he took all my money and left me. And he gave it back, but that was like 10 years later. So this is the fun thing about doing this stuff. It's nothing. I'll edit that part out, but I always
Fix that in post.
yeah, fix it in post. I do that all the time.
Fix it in post and avoid the lawsuit. There you go.
Yeah. But I mean, that's I love asking that question because
It's great.
you think about it. You'll probably later on today you'll come back and
The
find
rid of the staircase. Yeah. I mean, I'll get out of here in 20 minutes.
Well, and I kept thinking, when you said that, I was thinking about Cloris Leachman and Young Frankenstein walking up the stairs with the empty candelabra.
So, by the way, if you have not seen the Gene Wilder documentary, it's fabulous. Oh my God, it's very funny. It tugs at your heartstrings. And you know what? It's not covered in there, but I never understood. So, Cloris Leachman's character is named Frau Blucher, which I guess means glue, which is in German, which is why the horses neigh in the Bata every time you hear her name. Frau Blucher.
Isn't that
So much there.
It's like, the things that people are associated with that they wish they were not, like more cowbell. That hisses get off so much. Is there a line like that in your life that people associate with you that you wish they wouldn't?
No, yeah, comrade. I had an old friend in the audience here, and we rolled around at Steve Barry's wedding, and for some reason, either it was alcohol-induced or it was in context, it was of the moment, we all started calling each other comrade. Steve Barry's wedding, so...
Lives on forever. It lives on.
Lives on.
Thank you, Brad. This has been wonderful. It's great to meet you and be with you.
So nice to meet you.
Brad Thor, another interview from Bouchercon 2025, a copyrighted presentation of Outliers Writing University, all rights reserved. Learn more about our essential services at outlierswritinguniversity.com. With Jennifer Dornbush, I'm Terry Shepard.